This is episode 18 of our coffee morning, the big stay era, which is a complete flip on the big leave that we did, 6 months ago? Was it even 6 months ago? 4 months ago? Something like that?
Yeah.
And that was pre me having twins, so probably more brain capacity then.
A few more hours sleep.
But it's interesting. I think this is going to be a really interesting topic, really, because we've seen this massive shift in people leaving in drones because they're, not happy for the most minute kind of reason, to actually coming out the other way. And that's what we're going to discuss today.
Yeah, definitely.
So I suppose that's it in essence, really, isn't it? We've kind of gone from this generation within the UK and probably other parts of the world, the US included, where went through COVID and people were struggling to hire ultimately. And the way to do what they found the best way to do it is to throw more money at people, offer better career opportunities, because individuals just basically felt that I'm not being appreciated for what I'm doing. I'm not getting where I want to go. And I'm not earning enough more money. And if someone will pay it to me, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
That kind of sums it up roughly.
Yeah, I think I think the workforce globalising through COVID as well.
Yeah.
In terms of before that, if someone said to work from home, it was like,
yeah,
don't be silly.
No,
this
what?
This is in the office.
What do you mean home?
Whereas now it's almost like a prerequisite that I'm going to at least be hybrid.
Yes.
90% of our customers are, are hybrid, especially in our space. Not so much in the kind of biotech space where you're a little bit more lab focused, I guess.
But yeah, I suppose if you have like a job where you physically can't work from home, work from home. So if you're a scientist, for example, or a plumber, they couldn't work from home. I suppose you could fix your own plumbing. Yeah, that'd be about it.
Yeah, about it. Yeah.
Do you know what though? I did get some stats on this. So I looked at, there's global stats, but I looked at more the UK stats on the Census 2001 website. And it was quite interesting, actually. So it talks a little bit about the proportion of people wanting to work from home and keeping that as like a long-term thing, opposed to ones that want to go to work and everything in between. But what was interesting about it is that it all kind of discussed the increase, I suppose, when working from home, and then it was more like hybrid working, and then there's the population of people that actually wanted to come back in the office versus the ones that want to work from home more. Do you reckon you would know if I asked you what demographic of people were the ones that wanted to work from home more?
I reckon it's younger people and parents are probably the biggest percentages of people.
Yeah? So this, the youngest and oldest workers were the least likely for hybrid working.
Really?
Workers aged 30 to 49 were the most likely to report hybrid working, with 29% reporting doing so. So they were saying that the younger generation, but they go this right from 16 years old right up to 70, I suppose. So the older generation wanted more of it, didn't want as much of it, basically. They wanted the hybrid. They want a bit, but they wanted to be able to come to the office.
Yeah, I would get that because that's what they're used to for this amount of years.
Yeah, and the younger generation, which is up to 29, really, again, wanted more flexible working and wanted office environment with a little bit, whereas people kind of my age, basically, which kind of hits between 30 and 49, which I'm really sad to say, I'm slap bang in the middle of that now, was the biggest demographic of people. 29% of the people, that's what they wanted, to be more hybrids and more time working from home.
Yeah, now you've said it makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense because the older generation are kind of saying, well, I've been in the office. Yeah, this is just how I work. To work from home is nice. I think the middle age demographic makes a lot of sense because at that point you're quite established in your career, or on the way to be. They
do say that in this report. Actually, I think we should put a link onto this. Actually, it's interesting because they did say a lot of really experienced or higher valuable people, should we say, or really successful people wanted this more.
Yeah, kind of mid to senior management level. Yeah, where it's kind of like, I know what I'm doing. I've got, generalising, you probably have young family or already have a family as well, so you need to have more flexibility around home life as well, and you kind of know what you're doing to a degree.
Yeah, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd like to think so. As a general rule of thumb, you'd probably say most do, or most think they do. And I guess the younger generation is surprising because you think that there want to be a higher demand for work from home, but then also to caveat that, it's like, well, quite early on in my career, I want to learn and develop and grow.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do that without actually being able to see what people are doing and kind of take it all in. So yeah, it's interesting. I think with young people to say they wanted the option more.
Yeah.
Not necessarily say I want to work from home exclusively, but I want the option more.
I think that was ultimately it. It was more like they just want some flex.
Yeah.
So it could be exactly that, just hybrid basically. A few days in the office, a few days from home, whatever. But it was definitely more 30 to 49 were like, I want more from home than not.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is
brilliant.
quite... Yeah, and this is also quite a good thing. This is more common benefits from working from home. So it's a lot of questions were kind of asked, and these are the top kind of things that popped out of it. So the top one, and it was like 89% of people said their improved work-life balance.
Yeah,
I think it's self-explanatory, isn't it? I suppose you're already at home, you're not commuting.
Yeah. I find, though, that when I work from home, at least, you end up working later and you don't take a proper lunch break.
I agree.
I think me personally, you're probably more efficient at home because you're less distracted by colleagues and...
Well, funny enough, that's the second one. I don't even know the exact percentages on a graph here, but it's over 50% of people agree with you with that. So there was fewer distractions working from home.
Yeah, I know if I've got to work through a load of admin, or I've got like a project where I don't necessarily need to be around the buzz of it all.
Yeah,
I'd much rather take myself into a room or go, work from home, just kind of look and crack on with it. I can put my own music on and just focus on it.
What music do you listen to?
It's so random. I just put it on shuffle, and I don't have any playlists.
No,
I just have.
Do you really play any playlists?
Just like songs.
Wow,
So
I have loads of playlists on my phone.
Yeah, I've just missed it now. I'd have to audit it. But what I do is I'll shuffle 4,500 songs, and it goes from literally like it could be Beyonce to Nessun Dorma,
Really?
like opera, to like whatever it might be. It's just there's no in between. It's a little bit of everything.
That's my like song.
I like a song and then immediately like it, so it goes back up to the top of the pile.
Okay.
So there is method to the madness.
Yeah, I like stuff.
I'd much rather have a playlist to go right. I want to this sort of music.
I've got a ton of weird stuff now because where my Spotify, Jake and Ruby use it, it has all sorts of music. So I can be listening to 90s rap, which I listen to a fair bit, I suppose. And then all of a sudden it will be like West Ham songs, Liverpool songs. And the next minute it's like Frozen.
A roller coaster of emotions.
You're really like this all the time. You really are.
You're on the terraces with the scarf, and then the next thing you're spinning around in a swirly dress.
Yeah, listening to Encanto. That's my life. It's really crazy.
Listening to Tupac.
Yeah. Because they can mix that. It'd be awesome. Yeah. But no, some of the football songs are very questionable as well.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. And Jake listens to them at night. He puts it in Alexa. So he goes, Alexa, play West Ham songs. And obviously the new Bowen song.
Yeah.
He's sitting there.
Daddy's not too happy.
Daddy's not happy about this one. But
yeah.
Talking about distractions, there are a few distractions at home.
Yeah.
So that's that one. And I think you kind of mentioned this, is quicker to complete work. I think they kind of go hand in hand. And I'll rattle through these. Well, over just under 50% said they actually had an improvement of their well-being.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then it really cascades back from here. So it's less than 20% found it easier to think of new ideas, easier to work with others. So that was like just over 10% of people agree with that. And then there's a few other things that they don't really specify. And then some people said there was no advantage whatsoever. And actually there's a lot less job opportunities. Less than 8% of people was like there's actually more opportunities by working from home. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting.
It's almost like from a personal and efficiency perspective of doing the actual job you're doing, there's a huge benefit there. But for the social kind of aspect, the progression aspect of it, the engagement, the collaboration aspect of it is very, very low.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because you are in your own bubble.
Yeah, it makes perfect. It's even like in an office, if you had 20 people and, well, if we all had our own offices, you had to go out, knock on someone's door, and it would be less collaborative. The fact that you can just sort of poke your head over the desk or walk over to the room and say, hey, I've got this, what do you think I should do here?
Yeah.
It helps massively.
Can chat over a coffee or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's like the collaboration and relationship part is a lot more present. And I think that's so difficult to do when you're entirely remote. I know businesses make it work, and there's a lot of remote first businesses or remote only businesses done really well, but exactly what it looks like is a massive challenge. I think to do it at scale is such a difficult part.
I think everyone had to adapt, right? I think this is kind of it. And this is where I think the big state is now coming in, because companies have listened and gone, fine, flexible working, benefits, better career progression, we talked about skills taxonomy in the last kind of podcast to really identify what those kind of key requests are. But at the same token, companies have been very frugal about how they're spending as well. So they have made cutbacks. They're kind of gone, we don't actually need X, Y, and Z. And I think that has kind of made people think, right, okay, there is actually a worth to what I'm doing. And the market isn't as buoyant as it was a year ago.
Yeah.
Funny, and here's a great stat. To the Great Resignation, right? So back in 2022, over 50 million people left their jobs voluntarily in 2022.
Yeah.
Which I think is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. It's weird when you kind of put it into perspective. That's in 1 year, 50 million people. That's not people that have been made redundant or taken, kind of long-term leave, who have been sacked, haven't made it past probation. 50 million people just said, look, I'm calling it a day, I'm going elsewhere.
Yeah.
Although, because I was thinking about when we kind of spoke about just this topic and this big stay conversation, it kind of got me thinking it makes a lot of sense in my mind if you look at it at an extremely high level and just say 50 million people left their jobs because they weren't happy.
Yep.
So they've found new jobs.
So 50 million other jobs.
50 million people have just moved to a company where they're quite happy.
Yeah.
So they're not going to move again because of this paradigm shift of, I think more power has gone to the employees during the big leave.
Yes.
Now it's transitioning back over to the employers, which it has historically been, at least for the last few years. So it does, it's a case of saying, well, everyone's moved around and kind of gone, look, let me just see it out here. In theory, the job you've gone to should be better than where you've come from.
Yep.
So you're not.
That's the whole point.
You're a hell of a lot less likely to leave. There'll always be outliers and people that, weren't quite sold the dream or sold the dream and it didn't work out, or have decided to say, kind of move on or better offers. But I think that whole shift, it was always going to happen in my mind. That if everyone left their job,
there was 50.
In 2022, the next year, there's not going to be as much movement because everyone's already moved.
Everyone's moved. And I think during that time, there was a huge technology shift.
Yeah.
So everyone, when you think about just before COVID, we were lucky, and we spoke about this before, that for us, we did everything via VoIP, cloud-based laptops. Okay, COVID's come along, just take your laptop home and see you in the morning. It was that simple. But for a lot of organisations, like, how on earth are we going to take our entire infrastructure and give it to people at home? That must cost tens of thousands, even more for some cases. But now everyone's done like a digital transformation on flexible working, hybrid working, using freelancers and contractors, and this whole gig economy, as well as the technical advancements. So we're geared up for it. So when you have people coming in and go, well, what's your benefits? And you do offer X, Y, and Z. So we've got flexibility of working, career progression, because you had to listen, because the 50 million people that were left organisations must have been, those companies must have been left going, what on earth do we do? We're going to have to get better at empowering our staff, making clear things better, maybe looking at salaries, making sure we're paying competitively, making sure you have the best tech, all that kind of stuff. So I can imagine that's kind of where we've got to.
Yeah.
So is it arguable to say if people are staying, that people are happier now in their jobs? Or are they more scared about leaving because there's nothing else out there? Or is it a mixture of both?
Yeah, I think it's a big mixture of both. I think when people hear that people in their team are leaving and getting 20, 30, 40, 50% pay rises, you're always going to be looking out, because it's like, well, if they've got it, why can't I?
Yeah.
But now you're looking around kind of saying, oh, people have been made redundant, or people have been let go, companies are shrinking. I think it all comes down from the top. I don't mean the top is in the best companies, but in the tech space, we've seen it where Twitter lay off half the staff, and all of a sudden...
How many did they lay off? 50? Was it 15,000 staff?
15,000, I think, yeah. I think it was the initial wave.
Yeah.
And I think other companies see that and go, well, if Twitter are doing it, what do they know that we don't know? They're the epitome, they're the best of the best. What do they know that we don't know? And I think there's a little bit of a sheep effect to a degree as well.
I completely agree. I think that's was a big catalyst to start things off. I reckon he done it and cold 15 people, 1,000 people, just like that. And I reckon everyone else must have gone, yeah, that's a point. Like, what don't we need at the minute anymore? Because we've overpaid all these people through COVID and this and the other, and almost had guns held to your head. If you don't hire me, then you're not getting anyone, and I want top money. But now it's all flipped on its head again. Yeah, it's a really interesting paradigm, like you say.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, with big stay, it's interesting. They say, how is it good for employers and HR? I think that's the big focus on retention. Like that's the big.
Yep.
It's a big big topic of conversation that we've always had since the inception of Northreach and since I've always been here. Is it's not just hiring people, but actually getting them to stay.
Yeah.
Build a workforce where people aren't leaving, or you've got a really, really low attrition. You're always going to have attrition rates, whether it's people moving on, retiring, people just needing that next step up in their own career. But the retention piece is so important. So how is this, I think for HR and for business talent leaders and business leaders, how can we make sure that this big stay
is positive,
and how do we make sure it stays? Trying to word it without using the same word twice.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, I think they've got to be
not just a farce or a trend.
Yeah, it's got to be engaged employees, because again, you don't want people just staying for the sake of it because they're worried that they can't get something else. Because if you're not thriving or you're feeling empowered in your role, you're just in this static kind of mode.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I was speaking to a company the other day that were talking about metrics and how you put metrics on people when you're scaling. How do you keep like your culture aligned to the employees' values and whatnot? And 9 times out of 10, when you look at these things, it's all done through performance review, stats and barometers of what the outputs are. So our game is really simple. You do X amount of phone calls, interviews, you do placements, you make revenue, and it's all output. And what he was trying to explain to me is going, that's all well and good, but what if you actually knew exactly the rationale and the reasons behind people's actual behaviour, and then you could help with that first. So it's the input. Excuse me. So if you start thinking about, okay, how do I ensure this individual does feel empowered, it's clear, the communication is all there, they know exactly what they're doing, they love what they're doing, and then the output will be just as good anyway, and they feel great about it. Because he kind of threw a stat at me to say last year that I think it was, whilst a lot of people are staying, I think there's a crazy stat, it's like 71% of people actually feel quite disengaged at work.
Really? 71%?
Yeah. So all of a sudden, that's a huge amount of, wrong way around. It's 21% of people are disengaged. So a fifth. So a fifth. Yeah, because that'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So a fifth of your business are disengaged. So if you're a small business or a big business, if you're doing £1 million worth of business, say a year, you're losing $250,000 through just disengaged people. So then that's your kind of risk factor. So how can you reduce that piece to do exactly the same thing, do exactly the same pace and everything, just engage your people better, which will give you better profit.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a hell of a lot of sense, rather than, it's like having a car and saying, well, I can't get past 100 miles an hour. You're saying, well, don't just keep tasking it to get to 100 miles an hour. Like, actually look at what the problems are. Is it because the gears aren't right, or there's not enough fuel, or whatever,
you have no fuel in your car.
What's happened before that, rather than focusing on the output. We need to do a track time of this amount. How do we get there? Work backwards. It does make a lot of sense, but then how do you actually do that? That's the tricky piece.
I think it's just breaking it down. It's breaking it down in terms of like making sure the roles are kind of right, that the communication is kind of there. It's to ensure, I suppose, really that people actually enjoy what they're doing ultimately. The how is really, I think, just through good training and development, closer communication, more clearer kind of objectives that aren't ridiculous.
Yeah.
And just being brutally honest about it, I think that's probably a good place to start, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think, and it's not, it's personal development, and we've had this conversation previously, and it's around, well, when it comes to learning and development and progression, who should it come from? I think it has to come from both parties as well. Disengaged staff is one thing, but then not just doing it for the sake of it, and actually saying to people, what do you need support and development with, and what can we do to help you with that? Here's what we can suggest, but what do you actually want to do?
Yeah.
Because it's like, so, well, you're struggling on this area, you need to do this course and that course, and it's like, well, I've got other things going on, and it's not for me, I don't want to do it. It's like, well, what can we do to help you that you want to do yourself as well? Because you can't force people to do things. When they're disengaged, it's 10 times harder, because they're kind of not seeing the value, not seeing the point, just kind of going through and running the motion, going through the mill.
Yeah.
So it's actually engaging people on how you can support them to then re-engage themselves in what they do in their work. It's a difficult one to get, to kind of get through. It's about doing it in the right way.
I think you're hitting it on the head to a point there, mate, because it probably is. Is that some of that feedback must have come back. We need more flexible working, needs to be paid better, need better career opportunities, etc. And companies have gone, okay, let's do all those things. Now why aren't you doing your job? It's probably is a partly that. So I reckon it might not be as vicious as that, but now it's just that we're working through it. People are staying because they can see the value in staying. Yeah. Because employers have listened and kind of gone, this is what you want, that's what we'll do then.
Yeah.
So it's
hearing from the people as well.
Yeah, taking the feedback and taking it constructively and acting on it. I think that's kind of it, isn't it? Like if you actually act on it, it's genuine, it's coming from a genuine place, it's going to better the business, better everyone involved, then why would you leave?
Yeah. Yeah, if you can see the business is on a positive course and that things are being put in place, that it's not going to be an overnight thing.
No.
It always comes back to that instant gratification that we talk about, where it's I need things now, it needs to happen as immediately, or I don't feel valued and someone else will do it for me. Which is, I think, has been the difficulty, especially with the big leave. But yeah, it's about how you can kind of take a step back and say, well, I can see how things are improving and that steps have been taken. It's not going to be overnight. Performances aren't just going to turn around after a chat and a coffee or a beer and all of a sudden you're back on track and everything's flying. It's a slow process, but
I can imagine that's been a big.
That.
Yeah, imagine that's been a big thing between the big leave and the big stay, because people that are quite happy just to kind of go, this isn't right, I'm leaving, must have just hit a point where it's like it's illogical now. Like, why are you leaving? From what you just said, you have everything. We can't offer you anything more, so why would you leave? So maybe there's a bit of reflectiveness there as well.
Yeah.
But I don't blame anyone for that. I think if, at the end of the day, someone turns around and goes, I can offer you a ton more money, world at your feet, come join us, it's going to be incredible. And it's like a too good not to accept. I get it.
Yeah.
But I think
sometimes it's just looking at it and saying, look, this is as far as I can go with this company.
Yeah.
It's quite eye-opening. I had a chat with a manager recently and sort of said, look, I'm not looking for new roles. It was like a head of position. He said, but there's someone in my team who's been with me for 6-7 years. We're really good mates, really get on with him. The ceiling's here. I'm not going to leave anytime soon. I've got everything I want, but he shouldn't be held back for that.
No.
Here's his number, speak to him. And he's like, it's a healthy relationship to say, especially when you're kind of getting to those senior levels where you're kind of saying, look, you're not leaving anytime soon. The next step for me in my career is to be a head of or C-level and aspire towards that. I can't do it here, which is fine. How can we work around going elsewhere? And then maybe the door will open up in a few years.
Yeah.
Rather than I'm leaving because you can't offer me this, and it's almost a bit like
bit of a sour.
It's a sour take. Why can't it be a positive conversation to say, this is where I want to develop?
Yeah.
You can't do it
here
for whatever reason, whether it's more money or whether it's more flexibility working from home, or just to say, look, we hear a lot. People say, I've hit my ceiling. It's like, what does that actually mean? Have you hit the ceiling, or does it appear you have? It's like, no, I have. Like, the next step for me is a head of role, and we've had a head of that's going to be here for over 10 years.
Yeah, and then that's where I'm going to end up sitting underneath.
Yeah.
I think yes, you're absolutely right. There's a stat here actually. So this is by LinkedIn. So 94% of employees stated that they would stay in a company if the company's actively invested in their career development. It's kind of what you said, right? But it's going to come to a point where it's like, you can't offer me anymore, we can't offer you anymore. But that's fine, because we just come to the end of the road. Things change, things move.
Yeah.
And I'm still a big believer that actually people coming and going, not frequently, but over the course of a business is a good thing. It gives you an opportunity to look at different angles, a more diverse way of actually thinking about things, particularly if you haven't got tons of headcount just to keep hiring and do all those wonderful things that people should say, that you should have the most diverse workforce in the world and do this and do that and the other. If you kind of have budgets and you've got teams and stuff and you want to empower those people, how the hell didn't you do that? So when people kind of leave, you can start thinking about those other elements to bring different ideas, different points of view. So I think that helps evolution, and also stops companies just sitting on their asses and not doing anything either.
Yeah.
Keep fresh, keep moving, keep evolving ultimately, which I think is a good thing. But like you say, it doesn't have to always be left on a negative note. It could be it's just this right now. It's come to the end. That's not to say you can't pick it up somewhere down the road.
Yeah. You leave you leave a company when you're an analyst. You say, look, I want to become a team lead. It's not possible. We've already got a manager. There's only 6 of us. 2.5, 3, 4 years later, you say, right, I've managed a team on my own. You now need a manager because you've grown the business as well. I've got that. I've gone away and got that experience. I come back, and also it's almost a positive where you've kind of got, the business to a degree as well. But then you've also gone away and added different strings to your bow and a different perspective, different other ways companies do it as well. Certain companies are for it. Some are very against it. Where it's kind of like when they leave, you leave. I think it's quite an antiquated, quite an old-fashioned kind of mindset to have. Where
I think it's old-fashioned. It's blinkered. It's very just one-dimensional. Ultimately, we're not with us, you're against us kind of approach. And I've definitely met people like that and worked for people like that, which I think is absolutely phenomenally stupid. Like, it's just proud. That's all that is.
Yeah.
And ignorance a lot of the time too. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, a lot of times it is exactly that. It's being too proud just to kind of put the past in the past. And if you did leave on a sour note, then maybe it's a bit different, but it goes back to that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it links into all of that really things, company culture and employee experience. If people are enjoying what they do, the kind of everything else kind of comes with that in terms of.
It's totally linked, isn't it? It's totally linked.
Because even if you put salary, working from not as much work from home, but if you put salary and progression aside, if you just enjoy the people you're around and the company and the values, and you have a good experience of doing what you're kind of doing as it stands, those things can be delayed, can be put later.
Yeah, totally. You're right, though. This is it. I think we've kind of got to the point now where companies have listened, they've evolved, they've changed. Employers have kind of got a better kind of sense of exactly what they're doing. And it might not be, it's not done. I wouldn't say anyone's kind of cracked it to go, that's it, we are 100%. I don't think that's ever going to happen, because it'll always change, it'll always evolve, there'll always be something. Because we're humans at the end of the day. And that's the one other thing that it's easy to forget that, we're still emotional beings. And we don't do things logically sometimes. We don't do things the right way sometimes, but it's all a learn. And with all the kind of bad stuff that happened through COVID, the big leave to now the big stay, I'd say we probably kind of are exiting that part of this life cycle of the planet in a more positive fashion. If we're collaborating and getting on better, there's still a lot to work. Clearly, by the stats that we shared with First Story, still a lot of work to do. So how do you still foster collaboration and creative kind of thoughts if you don't want to engage?
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
It's a real tricky one. But it may, I don't know. We'll see, I suppose, won't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just going to be an evolution. It really is. Really is. So there's a couple of key points here that I think are interesting. This is more from like a technological standpoint. The things that really helped. So do you remember, I suppose it was Zoom. I suppose when COVID came along, you could buy shares in Zoom because it's going to be the next kind of thing and that type of stuff. So that's obviously evolved massively since then. So now we've kind of got like Slack, Teams, Zoom. And I think there's been a report here to suggest that there's been a 13% increase in productivity directly influenced by these creative platforms in itself, which kind of makes sense, because if you can't, emails are slow and old, to be able to kind of send a message on WhatsApp or Slack or Teams or whatever, and you get an instant response, I can see why it's a good thing. This second one's an interesting one for me. Project management tools. So we're talking Trello, Asana, Jira. I suppose, again, this is why your effectiveness at home is so much more, because if you can't been given deadlines, clear instruction, what excuse have you got not to do your job?
Yeah.
So I think that's a quite interesting one. Backed up by more L&D, which I suppose this all goes hand in hand. LinkedIn Learning, I think, is a fucking game changer. You can look at that at any time you want. There's so many good stuff on there.
Yeah, during COVID, when literally the guillotine came down and everything we were working on. That was a lot of what we did was LinkedIn Learning. And it is really useful. It's not, it's free.
Yeah, it was free. And it does. And this, I agree with this. They said there's a report by Deloitte, companies that invest in comprehensive learning platforms are 92% more likely to innovate and 52% more productive. So I was thinking, when we was going through those learning phases ultimately, there was a lot more kind of creativity and focus on what we was going to do when we come out of COVID, which ended up making us more productive.
Yeah.
So we had a direct impact on that one, so that was a good one.
Yeah, 100%.
Well-being and mental health.
Yeah, massive.
So that's why everyone's taking that a bit more seriously nowadays, aren't they? Bringing your whole self to work, apps, Headspace, Calm. They're really good ones just from like a well-being perspective, or meditation, that type of thing. And just moving, ultimately, isn't it? I think it's all about mind, body and soul.
Yeah.
So I think the well-being thing made good sense.
Definitely. I think that's the biggest thing that we've seen as well, is big companies investing in, emotional well-being, physical well-being. Physical well-being's always been,
It's always been there, isn't
a
it?
part of it, of like a nice benefit to have. But I think
Like a gym membership or something like that,
yeah,
right?
we have an on-site gym, we have memberships, we can have discounts. But I think the mental side of things is so important now as well.
To have more access to it, I think is great, really. Like,
I think it's less of a taboo to talk about in the workplace as well.
Definitely.
It's how you're actually coping with things, like, not just try to go for a beer and sort it out.
Just down it there. I think it's your emotional intelligence as well, right? Because if you know how you're feeling and why you're feeling like it, you're able to make clearer decisions. And I think that's a big part of it, because if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or unsure, just to be able to kind of take a minute, and whatever form that looks like, to then make an informed decision. I'm quite erratic with some decisions sometimes. I've got better over the time, I hope. And I don't really study mindfulness as much as I probably should, but it definitely helps to take a minute before making decisions, particularly big ones.
Yeah.
So I think that's why well-being has been a big thing, because of stress.
Yeah, 100%. Especially when you're making those decisions, and a lot of what we do, you get so emotionally invested in it as well, which is quite early in my career, I remember.
Definitely.
Just before you react, just take a moment.
Just take a minute.
30 seconds, minute, 5 minutes, whatever it is, has such a big impact.
Yeah, it really can. Automated HR platforms. Workday. Hate Workday, sorry. From an ATS perspective, it's horrendous. I'm sure the actual platform and everything else it does, but as a user, never liked it. Sorry about that. Bamboo HR, Gusto. Yeah, they're all really good ones. They are. But I don't know enough about the actual HR platforms and stuff to actually make like a call on this. But I'd imagine what they're talking about with automated HR is probably more easy access to things like policies and benefits and those types of things.
Yeah. I mean, Breathe is a bit of a game changer for us, just in terms of, it's very basic. Expenses, holidays, documents you need to read.
Yeah. It does what it needs to do.
Yeah, it does what it needs to do. So rather than having to do things manually, I think we're, from a recruitment side, I think ATS is a lot of work.
They have got a long way to kind of go.
Yeah.
I think I'm yet to see a good HR system that has a decent applicant tracking system at the back end of it. Some of them have got it, and that's what I mean. I think things like a Workday, let's just say, I've used in abundance of, and none of them kind of hit it as well as they could.
No, the really good HR
add-ons
systems
don't have a good ATS, and a good ATS system doesn't have a good HR.
No,
I think they just come from different places. Ultimately, that's probably the long and short of that one. But to automate things, AI, that's all going to be a whole another level. Feedback and survey tools. This is probably quite a big one, really, isn't it? So it's feedback just from your staff, and that in general is always good. But now there's actually better tools to do that. I mean, we use Forms, right? Microsoft Forms is free if you've got 365. It's all kind of built in, which is really good. But I think that's definitely, I would say, has it been a game changer? I suppose it has. To actually get people's opinions and that type of stuff. It's been really, really good.
Yeah. The only one on here that I'm still on the fence about is VR and AR.
Do you know what? I met a startup company yesterday, and they're doing VR therapy, right? So it's mainly for like stroke patients. So it's like a wearable. You have like a little band like this that's up in your upper arm here, and it detects actual signals in your arms, because if you have a stroke, it's on your left side, isn't it? Mainly that can go a bit off, and they give you different like stretching techniques to get your strength back, to be able to kind of make the connections again, but it doesn't always work, and the frustration comes in from the patient because they can't do what they used to. So they've built this platform in VR where you wear a wearable and it detects the nerves, the slightest signals that are trying to get through to your arm, and it simulates your actual hand moving in virtual reality. So it's encouraging your brain and your body to actually do the movements you need to.
Well, really clever. Really clever. I was kind of trying to get head around it, but yeah, that's very clever. It's such a
It's a bit out there.
Yeah.
But they're in seed round at the minute, and they're literally looking for funding. But VR and AR, I think AR's are way off yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's very technical, and I think there's a lot of issues, from what I understand, of people using it with like motion sickness and all this kind of stuff. Whereas VR is a bit different because you can be sitting down using it. It's not all, in your world. It's all very much just right in front of you.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I think I like that one, but I think it's got a ways to go yet.
Yeah, especially, they're talking here about employee training, but I think it's kind of thrown back to what we talked about recently around for like hands-on roles.
Yeah.
So, for example, my youngest brother's gone to college doing an electrical engineering course, which is all hands-on. The trains have been absolutely woeful, so he can't get to college. So if he could say, right, we could do it VR.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do it in that way, but if you are like a hands-on role, you can say, right, here's a virtual version of what you're going to be doing. That makes a lot of sense. I think when it comes to office-based stuff, I lose the value in it a little bit. But then, if you could do a meeting with everyone from home in a VR world, how would that kind of work? I know that's kind of what Zuckerberg was talking about with Meta. So I personally just struggle to see it. But I think for hands-on, it says here PwC's VR trained users are 275% more confident when applying what they've learned compared to traditional learning methods.
Interesting, isn't it?
But hands-on, it makes a lot of sense.
Definitely.
Office-based, I don't see the value yet.
Probably not yet.
I'm sure someone will prove me wrong.
Yeah.
It certainly happened before. I'm sure it will happen again.
But it's good. I think either way, the big state in its like entirety as a subject, I think it's good. It's positive.
Yeah, I do. I think just to kind of tie into that, a lot of it needs to come through like recognition, and I think there's a big part of it as well. I think people that are doing well in their roles are being looked after more than they previously have.
I think it's clear cut. I think we've mentioned this once or twice before to say it's always like be careful what you wish for type of thing, because people now know how effective you can be.
Yeah. So if you are performing, you'll be looked after.
And if you're not performing, it'll be obvious.
Yeah, definitely. I
think that's a wrap, mate, really.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else we might have missed, but that's the important bit, isn't it, really?
I would say so. What's on your agenda for our next episode then, DeVries? Still have to think about it. Well, to be fair, we've done like a whole bulk, haven't we? So there's probably some good research to be done in terms of what the next phase of podcast looks like.
First one back since the Halloween episode.
Yeah.
And that was the first one back for a while because obviously had the little ones.
That's it. So by the time this one comes out, this will be the first one after that. So we'll see how well that one goes. What responses it gets.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see.
Nice. All right, mate. Thanks for that. Until next time.
Cheers.